Here we have the Glazyrin Lighthouse. We see a flat stainless steel frame, screwed reed with a spiral loop trigger, and it's milled out. On the back, these are a laser cut harp by Glazyrin, and they're going to be in the lower end or the lower price range of the Glazyrin line. Glazyrin line is a huge line of harps that produces harps in all different price ranges with a lot of different features, but this would be on the lower end of it and more of a beginner harp. Let's get a listen on the tone. Very deep, very saturated sound we're getting out of the Lighthouse. A little bit of breath, pretty decent sensitivity. Let's get a listen to the range. We'll start at the top, we'll come down. Good range for a beginner harp. Not as big as, some of our other more advanced Vargan, but a decent range for a beginner harp. Let's go ahead and let's compare that to another Glazyrin harp in the same price range. Here we have the Glazyrin Compass. Here we have a much more subdued range and tone and more subdued in volume with the Compass than we did with the Lighthouse. The one thing we're gaining with the Compass is a Compass is a lot easier harp to play. You can play it fast. This is going to have a much less steeper learning curve than the Lighthouse, but less payoff in the end. Not as much sensitivity, not as much breath, not as much range. So ultimately, the Compass is going to be a lot easier for a beginner to learn on, but once you learn the basics of the harp, there's not going to be a whole lot more you can do with it. Whereas the Lighthouse, we have increased range, increased sensitivity, increased volume. There's a little bit more breath in there too. The downside of the Lighthouse for a beginner harp is it's going to have a little bit steeper of a learning curve. It's going to require more precision, and it's going to be more of a slow play, but what you give up in the ability to play fast and in your precision is that you gain a lot more sensitivity, and there's a lot more you can do with the harp. You're not going to be able to pluck it fast, but it's going to be more sensitive to your breath, your breathing, everything that you do with your tongue and your mouth. So there's a lot, once you learn the basics, that you can do with this harp as a beginner and even as an intermediate. So it is, I would give it, for a beginner harp, I'd give it probably, about an 88 out of 100. The only downsides I can find with it is it does require a lot of precision. The upside of the harp is also that it has a very soft, flexible reed. It's not going to give you a lot of jaw fatigue from playing it for long periods of time, especially as a beginner. As people start off in playing jaw harps, your jaw and your teeth aren't used to having something held up against it, so it's nice to have a harp with a more flexible tongue. You can give it, let's go ahead and let's just run through, let's compare it to a couple other harps. Here we have the Lighthouse compared to its sister, the Compass. Then another Russian harp that is highly suggested for beginners, the Pokin. The Pokin is a pretty loud harp, and it's pretty easy to play. You can play it really fast, but the tone on it is oftentimes shrill, and it's not as musical or as melodious as the Lighthouse. The Lighthouse has a little bit more pure of a sound. You can listen to the bell ring compared to the Pokin. The Pokin has not as pure as a bell ring, not as pure tones, not as pure as overtones. Pokin, a little bit easier to play. You can play it fast. Lighthouse is more for somebody who wants to start off in meditative playing and who wants a harp with a deep saturated tone and good clear overtones. So as a whole, I do like the Lighthouse as a beginner harp. Despite its steeper learning curve, if you learn the basics of the harp, it's going to have more payoff in the end than, say, the Compass, and going to be a little bit more melodious than the Pokin. The main trade-off you're going to be making between the Lighthouse and the Pokin is obviously you're going to get more bass out of a Lighthouse. You're going to have much more pure tones. The Pokin, you're going to get a whole lot more speed. So yeah, overall, I do like the Lighthouse, and I do suggest it for beginners, especially if you're looking for harp with a little bit more to it. You're not going to be able to hammer this harp inward and outward quickly. Your speed is going to come from the speed of the techniques you apply, from your tongue, from your breath, from your mouth orientation. And the harp will teach you precision that's really going to pay off later when you get on to more advanced vargans, because some of the vargans do require a lot of precision. But anyways, I like this little fella here. Well, that's going to be it for this review of the Glazyrin Lighthouse. Like, share, and subscribe for more harpery. Harp out.
Yeah.